Hello.
Recording
Beautiful.
in progress.
For all those not
Um,
being here.
Many of you look like familiar faces, but if for those of you who have not been to one of these Zooms before, I am Wes Andrew. I'm the head winemaker at Atwater Vineyards, and I'll be chatting with you about the wines you've got this past shipment, as well as kind of a 2024 harvest overview. That's kind of the main theme of this Zoom tonight. It is a bit open forum. I don't want to chat, chat your ear off. So questions are welcome. I will share my screen here in just a moment so we can take a look at our presentation. So I'm going to go do that. Give me just a second to remember how to use Zoom.
Yeah, it's sort of been a while since we've
I was going to say, I was
worked
prepping
out.
my, when I thought we were doing Google Meets, I was like, oh boy, I don't know how to use this, but I'm glad we're back to Zoom. So let me, here we go. All right. Let me like minimize some of this. Um,
There we go.
I know there will be some black whatever boxes for some of you. That's just the Zoom stuff getting in the way that I can't get rid of. Okay. How does that look for everybody?
Good.
I love it. Okay. So we're going to start off with a bit of a kind of harvest overview, and then we'll get into the lovely wines that you may or may not be drinking. I hope you're drinking at least one of them tonight. So the 2024 harvest was one of the, I think I said this about a couple of years ago about the 2022 harvest, but yet again, it's been one of the best harvests we've had in a very, very long time. So much so because we had really nice quality as well as a pretty good crop. That's not usually you have one or the other. Usually have a really good quality and low crop, or you have a lot of high crop and then low quality. But this year, we got really, really lucky with a really pretty dry spring, dry and warm. We had some rain that came in, but it kind of came in at like it was like a perfect storm when we got the rain. It really invigorated the vines and it got them moving. And so we ended up being about 2 weeks ahead of kind of the standard harvest. Um, or like yeah, about 2 weeks ahead to normal. So that's a huge difference. We haven't had that large of a um, kind of increase in growing degree days and vine growth that early in the season for a very long time. So that was kind of started us off right away. I believe we harvested the first harvest date was August 28th or 29th, which is I've never harvested once in my life in August. It's usually it's the first end of the first week of September. Um, so we were kind of had to get into gear really early this year and kind of prepare ourselves and get ready a little sooner than we had anticipated in most years. So the result of that really vigorous growth allowed for kind of like I said earlier, really good quality fruit, really clean fruit, really nice Brix accumulation. So grapes were really ripe, more so than they normally are. Um, Acidity is a little lower, sugar is a little higher. The tannins in the reds this year are, I would say, medium to average to maybe slightly more extracted than normal. The tannin due to the large crop or the yeah, due to the larger crop, the skin to juice ratio in the grapes was pretty normal, so we didn't get a lot of big extraction like we got in 2022, like in the Cabernet Sauvignon that maybe some of you are drinking tonight, that you got um, in your shipment. So overall, it was really nice. Whites are going to be great. I think the standouts are going to be Chardonnay for sure. Chardonnay is going to be really nice for the whites. Riesling will be nice as well. Sparkling. Honestly, everything. There's nothing so far that I in the cellar or that are in barrels that I kind of think, ugh, this isn't a year for that, so all in all, it was a really spectacular vintage. Um, so here are some photos of our Pied de Cuve, which is a natural. This is how we inoculate all of our wines every year. We basically make this starter culture from, usually it's Pinot Gris, over on the left there. I believe that's Pinot Gris, and then sometimes some Gewürztraminer because it tends to be similarly ripe to the Pinot Gris. Um, and we pick those it's just the ripest white grapes that are available to us on the farm. I don't want to use reds because they're further behind than the whites, and also I don't really want to inoculate our white wines with red juice. So we harvest maybe about 100, maybe 200 pounds, 150, 200 pounds of fruit. And then we put it in a little stainless steel, very small stainless steel tank. And then I just foot stomp it and kind of get it macerating and get the fruit crushed. And then we cover that with a lid. And that starts to ferment naturally. And if it smells and tastes good, then that's what we use to start all of our fermentations. This year will be the first year that everything was whatever spontaneous or the Pied de Cuve. I have pretty much eliminated all commercial yeast. That's just a stylistic choice. I don't have a gripe with those yeast. They have their place, but this is kind of just the direction I decided to take for fermentations. And then on the right side, sometimes we'll throw in a little flowers that we find around, just because there's yeast on there, and it's not really going to add a whole lot, but it's mostly just for including some other things that are floating around in the vineyard. So here we have some Pinot Noir grapes. I wanted to include this photo just because I don't feel like a lot of people get to see the whole cluster pressings that we do. We always take photos of us sorting fruit on the crusher, the sorting table that goes into the crusher to stemmer. So I really wanted to kind of show you guys what we do for our sparkling wine. So all the fruit goes straight into our press. It's left whole, and then it's pressed very gently, like this, instead of being crushed, to avoid any sort of extraction or any bitterness or tannins that you don't really want in a sparkling wine. Once the fermentation continues and the sparkling base wine goes through its secondary fermentation and it captures that CO2 in the bottle. CO2 likes to kind of exemplify or exacerbate flavors and aromas. So you really want a nice, almost neutral-ish base wine. So that's why we whole cluster press all of our fruit that goes into sparkling wine. This is Pinot Noir, and is actually going into our rosé sparkling that you will hopefully see the first iteration of that from last year, and unfortunately another 3 or 4 years. But we have been starting to make sparkling rosé in the traditional method style. So I just wanted to include that there and give you guys a glimpse of what that looks like. It's a very tedious process. I think there might be some photos in here later of
Hey,
us
Wes,
throwing.
question.
Yes,
You said that's Pinot Noir in the picture?
yes, it is.
Those look like mighty tight or dense clusters. Is that typical of Pinot Noir, or is that what you're referring to as you had good harvest?
No, Pinot Noir is notorious for being a very tight cluster.
Oh, is it?
Yes, which is why it's kind of rot prone. Because it's the clusters are so tight, water likes to stay in there and doesn't like to dry out. So that's why if people talk about Pinot Noir being like really hard to grow or really finicky, or like, you know, can kind of turn on a dime in the vineyard, that's one of the many reasons, just because water stays in those clusters, kind of in between the nooks and crannies, and then mold starts growing in there. So yes, Pinot Noir is the Pinot in French, I believe, means pine cone. So if that helps you kind of, you know, pine cone is very kind of tight and or at least that shape in my mind is a kind of very tight thing. So all the Pinot grapes, Pinot Gris, Pinot Blanc, Pinot Noir, those are all going to be those very tight pine cone shaped clusters. But yes, this does look very clean. As it, like I was saying earlier, it was a very good year for fruit quality. This is some really nice looking Pinot Noir. So we're moving on. We're kind of all over the place. Kind of that was the Pinot Noir for sparkling. We start at the start of harvest. That was the first week. I think that was probably the 6th or the 7th when we picked that. And then now we're on to Syrah. Also whole cluster, but a little different. So the Syrah is something I like quite a bit from Atwater. And I've been kind of taken into a little different direction from 2022 onward. And that is it's whole cluster. It's basically whole cluster fermented or whole stem inclusion. So it's handpicked. We sort it, and then it goes into a bin, and then I stomp it and then get it crushed via whatever foot stomped. I keep my boots on for those of you who don't want feet in your wine. I do clean my boots off before I get in. And then this photo on the right is a little bit of Gewürztraminer that was co-fermented with the Syrah. The Gewürztraminer's in there really just for it's a bit of a novelty in a way. In the Rhone Valley, it's often Syrah is often fermented with Viognier, which is an aromatic white variety. And we don't have Viognier in the Finger Lakes because it doesn't grow. It needs really hot, dry climate. And so Gewürztraminer is kind of the closest thing we have to it. And so I just throw it in there kind of as an ode to Rhone. And also I perhaps down the line when we're getting closer to bottling the Syrah, we might back add some Gewürztraminer in. We did that in 2022, and it added a surprising, really kind of emphasized the Syrah's kind of natural flavors and aromas. So anyway, that's why that's there. If you're wondering why there's pink grapes in the Syrah, and I do believe there's a video of me stomping. Turn that down. Yes, it's a very tedious process. Do this for many, many hours all day. And so this is in lieu of the crusher destemmer. This is how the fruit's crushed, and then eventually it will start to ferment. Those of you who came, if any of you were here for the Harvest Jubilee, I did bring some bins out to punch down. I did bring out a Syrah bin, and if you were there, you would have noticed that it is a real treat to punch down, just because all those stems really make it tough to punch down. It's kind of like a really thick. The cap is at least a foot deep, so it's really tough to punch down for the first week or two. So yeah, that's that. Oh, we're done with this. Stop it. Okay. So I'll just wrap up with the 2024 harvest. Just some highlights. Really good quality, really good quantity. So we will not run out of wine for you. We have a lot of Cab Franc, a lot of Pinot. So wine will be, when it's released, we'll have a good amount of it. Good quantity, good quality. Whites are good. Nice Brix accumulation on the reds. Overall, a pretty spectacular vintage. It was kind of it was almost too easy in a way. I mean, the rain was non-existent, and I didn't even have to worry about the weather, which was fantastic. So if we get another one of those every year going forward, I will not complain. It felt like I was in California, where I don't have to worry about much of anything other than waiting for grapes to ripen. So hopefully that continues. Is there any questions about the 2024 vintage? I see something in the chat. Yes, I am. We do crush. It was about 4 tons. Yeah, so all the 4 tons were hand sorted and crushed by foot. It is a tedious process, but I love the Syrah, so um, it's worth the effort in my opinion.
Wes, what do you think doing that brings to it
Oh,
compared to
so
pressing or just stemming it?
So the stems are really what I'm after. We could totally um we could crush the fruit and then back add stems. But the stems are really what I'm after. There is some definitely kind of throughout the fermentation, some intracellular fermentation. Not all of those berries are going to get crushed by my feet. Um, And so intracellular fermentation is where berries will ferment with inside themselves. Um, and that kind of just brings a different aromas and kind of texture to a wine. But it's not it's not those berries get broken up throughout the fermentation process. So it's not really something I am really too concerned about, but that is definitely a part of the fermentation. But the stems they adjust the wine chemically. So in stems, there's a lot of potassium, and potassium will bring up the pH in a wine. And that just helps kind of soften out mouthfeel. And depending on the vintage, you may want to add more, add less stems. If, say, your pH was really high when you harvested, you might not want to add a lot of stems. You might want to maybe hold back on some stems. So in future vintages, I might use less stems, depending on what berry samples are looking like. And stems also bring in kind of stemmy character. They can bring, especially in the Syrah, kind of notes of oregano and kind of bark and tea, green teas. So I like that. I do like that addition, both from a chemical standpoint as well as a flavor and aroma standpoint.
So I assume that the stems either don't make it into the juice or you filter them out after.
Oh yeah, so this'll get when the reds are done fermenting. I'll go back to you can see this right side. This is Alex doing some punch downs. All those bins are then sent into the press, and then they're pressed off. So none of those skins follow the juice. They're pressed off the juice, and then we discard those skins. So
Well,
same.
the skins and the stems, I assume, right?
Oh yes, yep. Everything is once it's done fermenting in the bin, which it depends on the vintage. Sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 3 weeks. We'll press that off into tanks and separate the juice from the skins and the stems. Yeah.
So Wes, I have a question.
Yes.
You said about putting stems in, it helps the pH. What happens if the pH gets too high?
That is something you have to worry about. So most wine pH is between 2.9 at the really, really low end. I mean, maybe you can get 2.8 to 4. 4 being an extreme kind of danger zone. Once you get at 4 pH and above, microbes love to live in that environment. And you can get some serious bacteria spoilage problems when you approach that level. But luckily, here in the Finger Lakes, we rarely have to worry about approaching 4 pH. There has been some wines I actually think this Cab Sauv that you guys got is pretty close to 4. I think it's 3.8. But the difference between like 1 point difference, like the difference between 3.1 and 3.2 is 10 times difference from a God, what's the word I'm looking for? Intensity standpoint. So the difference from a microbial standpoint is that you really have to get to 4 to really worry about it. So I usually don't worry about it too much, but I do take the pH at harvest into account before I do add stems, because the Syrah is not the only wine that sees stem inclusion. The Pinot Noir also sees a heavy 50 to 60, sometimes more than that, percent stem inclusion. So that is something I have to take into account. So I don't, get to that level of pH. Does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you. And
Awesome.
if you want to make more Syrah, I'm not going to complain.
I am right there with you. It's one of my favorite things to make. So I'm
But we
glad-
planted
glad-
more. Thank you.
I
We did
second the
plant more.
motion.
Yes, we did plant more, so we should be getting more of it in the future. We have, I believe, 12 barrels, something like that this year, which is a lot. We have 4 tons and change. Maybe it was 4.5. So there'll be plenty of Syrah, I hope, going forward. Okay, so that's pretty much it for the 2024 harvest. If any other questions come to your minds, feel free to pipe up or put them in the chat. Let's move on to the wines you got. So I believe most of these were from, 2 of them were from 2022 and 1 was from 2023. So I will just give a brief cap of those vintages. So 2022 was a really, really spectacular vintage. Low quality, or sorry, low quantity, really high quality, especially in the reds. Was a really wonderful harvest. The pHs were high, acidities were kind of low. Brix accumulation was decent. We had a huge drought in May or June. Basically all of the summer in 2022 was a drought. So that because of that, we had lower quantity, lower yields, but really nice quality. And the skin to juice ratio was really nice. The skins were really thick, and that the skins are where you get color and tannin from in reds. And so the reds had a really nice color and some really nice tannin as well that you don't see every year. So the Chardonnay, we'll get onto this. This is a basically half Atwater fruit, and then the other half is from our friends up the road at Sawmill Creek. I'm not gonna go down every little number here for you guys, but I'm gonna skip the acidity, pH, and all that stuff. But as far as fermentation goes, so pretty much half of it was fermented in barrel, and then aged there for about 7 months. And then the other half was fermented in stainless steel, and then also aged an equal amount of time before being blended, and then bottled. The tank to barrel ratio, I'm kind of been tweaking around with the Chardonnay for the past couple of years. And it will continue to be a bit of an experiment, or I'll be making some tweaks as far as how much stainless steel versus how much oak we get. And so that's kind of the reasoning behind that ratio. I do like with the stainless steel fermented fermented Chardonnay, you do get a little more vibrancy, a little more. Usually, it doesn't go through malolactic fermentation. And for those of you who don't know what malolactic fermentation is, that is a bacterial fermentation that virtually all red wines go through, and Chardonnay almost always does, depending on the region it's from. You can find Chardonnay that does not go through malolactic in plenty of places, but in general, California, anything you get from California or Burgundy or those are most likely going through malolactic. And that process just the bacteria that is present eats malic acid, which is a major type of acid in wine, and the byproduct is lactic acid, and that lactic acid is the same lactic acid that you will find in dairy products. And so that lactic acid brings a lot of texture and mouthfeel. It can sometimes bring that butteriness that many people associate with Chardonnay, but that's not often the case. The reason people associate that flavor with Chardonnay is because of California, and that just became a California style. Like yeast, there are many strains of malolactic bacteria, and you can purchase ones that give more of that buttery flavor and aroma to a wine. And so that's why a lot of people, when they say, oh, I don't like Chardonnay, or I don't like barrel-aged Chardonnay because of the butteriness, that's not always the case. So I encourage you to try Chardonnays, even if you think you don't like them, because you don't like that butteriness. We do not tend to get a lot of it on our Chardonnay, maybe a touch of it, but in general, that is something I try to steer clear of.
I used to say that, Wes, until I got edumacated.
I am here to do that for you, Paul. I'm glad you are now open-minded to Chardonnay, because Chardonnay is really wonderful, and I like this wine quite a bit. It's showing really nicely right now. It's a very it's a softer Chardonnay. It's much more textural. The acidity is not very high, but it's not necessarily flabby. It's a really nice food pairing Chardonnay as well. And so going forward with the Chardonnay, I'll try not to rant too much about Chardonnay. I am trying to move towards this year I did a multi-pick. So I picked early, which happened to be for sparkling, for a Blanc de Blanc Chardonnay sparkling wine, but also with the thought that some of that Chardonnay would get blended with the later picked Chardonnay that would be for still wine. So what I'll be doing come probably June or July next year is we'll start doing some blending trials with the first pick and then the second pick. And this kind of allows me to retain some acidity with the first pick and also let the Chardonnay for the second pick go really ripen nicely. I think we got 23. I think it was over 23 bricks for the second pick Chardonnay, which is crazy high. The acidity, of course, is low. So that's why we have that first pick. And hopefully this will work out where I can kind of get the best of both worlds from doing that multi-pick. And then everything will be in neutral French oak. We bought these big barrels called puncheons. So basically like double barrels. And that just allows a little less surface area for the wine to come in contact with the barrel. So you get a little less extraction while also getting the benefits of barrel aging. So anyway, that's the Chardonnay. I'm gonna get off topic here if I keep talking about it. Any questions about Chardonnay? No? Perfect. There's me bottling it. There is a little, if those of you who have not seen our bottling line, oh no, that's for the Simboli. Those of you not seen our bottling line, here is a little video. This is the carousel that the bottles go around and get filled up with wine, and then they keep going down the line where they are corked and then eventually labeled at the end there.
Oh,
So on to Simvoli. Simvoli is the Greek word for confluence. So Simvoli or coming together. And then the reason we named it that is that this used to be called Big Blend. For those of you who've been with Atwater for a long time, we decided to change that.
okay.
And now we have Simvoli because it changes every year. And that's why we went with that name. I will ask, sorry, for those of you who are not muted, to please mute yourself. Apologize. Anyway, so every year it changes. So that's why we went with the name Simvoli. Because it's always, you know, as these wines are blended and made, it's changing every year. So yeah, so this year's the 2023 vintages is Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, and Merlot. It's just 3 of them this year. Sometimes Blau is in there, but the Blau was up to snuff in 2023, so we kept it separate, and we liked this blend of these 3 wines the most. So somebody, again, whoever was asking me about pH earlier, you can see this is 379, which is approaching, you know, when we get these numbers back from the lab, I look at that and say, ooh, that is up there. However, the acidity is really, you know, 6.6 grams per liter is pretty much the golden. 6.5 to 7 is kind of the golden, or 6 to 7 is the golden number. If you're basing things off of numbers. You will notice this is only 11% alcohol. I have stopped adding sugar at harvest. It's called chapitalizing. We no longer chapitalize. And so many of the 2023 reds are only about 11% alcohol. 11 and change for some of them. But this is kind of just a direction, again, kind of with the yeast and not using commercial yeast or commercial malolactic bacteria. The no chapitalizing was another part of what I wanted to get kind of start doing less of and now none of. And I think the 2023 reds are some of my favorites. The 2023 Cab Franc, which is not in this lineup, but we did just release it, is one of my favorites. It definitely is not, you know, these wines from 2023 aren't necessarily as alcoholic or as big, but that's kind of the part of what we're trying to do at Atwater, is really reflect the vintage and highlight what that vintage has to offer, because every vintage has something to offer. And in my opinion, you lose that by making these adjustments that, in my opinion, don't need to be made. So yes, this is a bit of a lighter, as far as reds go. It's not like a 2021 red, but it's a little lower alcohol. It's not horribly tannic, or comparatively to like the 2022 Cab Sauv. But this is a really nice blend. And I think if you've had the 2021 Simvoli, you'll know that it took a while for it to really come around. And that wine showed really, really well, like a year after release. So yeah, that's that. As far as the fermentation goes, most of this was open bins, I believe. These were all separate. So I'll see if I can find a photo of the crusher destemmer later. But so these were all destemmed and then put into bins where we punched them down. It seems like the average fermentation time was probably about 19 days. The Syrah was full cluster. I did not change that up even for that vintage. And then they were aged for 10 months in neutral French and Hungarian oak. We do have some old Hungarian barrels that are so neutral at this point. They don't really impart their very Eastern European vigor that they sometimes can in the past. Hungarian oak can be very spicy and almost meaty in a way. Sometimes I've in the past tasted wines out of a Hungarian barrel and it just smelled like a sausage shop in Berlin or something. Very Eastern European smells. But these days those barrels are most of them are 10 years or older, and they really don't impart much, but we still use them. Any questions on the Sivoli?
I like the Sivoli myself. I think this one's gonna, I think like Wes is saying, it's still on the young side. But this is one of the, I think, like the 23, I think the Sivoli is so fun because it changes when
Yes.
it's young to going even like 6 months down the line, it just changes so much. I think a lot of folks that might have had the 21 early was like, oh, it's okay. But then you wait 6 months and everyone was like, oh my gosh, I really
Yeah.
love the Sivoli. And that's sort of the beauty of it. It sort of really ages really nicely. And I love how aromatic it is. I mean, right now it's actually got this really cool, I don't know, it's like earthy thing going on with fruity,
we
earthy
get a
thing
touch of
going on.
pepper even though there's no Cab Franc in it.
Paul, that's probably from the Syrah.
Is it? Okay.
Yes, it's most likely from the Syrah. Just because I did leave all those stems in, and it was peppery and so that anyway, yeah, that's probably where you're getting that from.
Yeah, and I did get a chance to taste the 23 Cab Franc at the pickup party, and there was pepper in that too.
Yes, Cab Franc is not afraid to have a little pepper in there. Oh, I believe I stopped sharing my screen. Sorry. Let me see if I can fix that. Come back.
I still see it.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, I still see some more in
Oh.
2023.
I think you just
maybe
you
I
just
can.
mentalized yours. I think maybe, I don't know.
No. If you guys can still see it, then you sure you can still see
I
it?
see it. Yeah,
Okay.
I see it.
Okay, I got it. I think I got it back now. Did the slide change?
Yep, you're on.
Yeah,
Okay,
Cab
all right,
Sauv
all right.
Reserve, yeah.
I was trying to look at chat. Okay, it's just going to take
Yeah,
me
it's
back
on
to this.
Cab Sauv now.
And
Um,
Wes, I don't
yes.
know if you saw it, but there's also a question for you in chat.
Yes, I'm trying to read that right now. Integrate some dialogue in your
And thank you for joining us for the first time.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Yeah, so I've kind of been transitioning as I've been developing and as Atwater is kind of finding a new I guess new direction in the cellar. The big things I've been doing, kind of what I spoke a little bit about earlier, is just doing a little less, but doing it thoughtfully, if that makes sense. I think a big thing we like to ask ourselves is, why are we doing things? And if we're doing something, should we be doing it? And so I kind of came to the conclusions that we don't need to add sugar. We don't need there are other ways to go about, like adjusting, acidity levels or things like that without using additives. I can add acid to a wine, I can add sugar to a wine. But to me, that's not a reflection of the vintage or where it's from. If you're adding sugar to a wine, then does it really matter if it's from Burgundy or the Finger Lakes or wherever? Is that to me isn't a true representation of the terroir, or the sense of place. So I've really been trying to get us to kind of think twice about those things and finding alternatives to, if we do need to make an adjustment, how can we do that with other wine, if that makes sense. Say if like my acidity in one of the wines is just too low, or the wine kind of tastes flabby, then what can I blend in there to lift that wine up and give it a little more acidity? Or things like that. So I've really been trying to, I don't want to use the word natural. I don't like that. Low intervention is probably what I fall under. So I really try to be pretty hands off, and I feel like I've found the wines have just been showing themselves in a different way. I won't say a better way than prior years, but they're definitely different and unique, and that's what I'm trying to do is really highlight the Atwater Farm and the fruit that we grow here, and make it the best that it can be without adulterating is a really harsh word, but really pushing it towards something that it's not. I'm firmly believe that we can make really nice wines that have been whatever, unadjusted. Yeah, so that's kind of that's really the big things that I've been doing kind of as I took over a couple of years ago. And then just changing some stylistic things. The Chardonnay is changing a little bit. We've been doing more sparkling wine, a boatload more traditional method sparkling wine. And yeah, I would say those are the kind of the big things that I've kind of been doing. But I'm sure as I continue to make wine at Atwater, some things might change, or yeah. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay. Cabernet Sauvignon. Back to 2022. I didn't really talk about the 2023 vintage, but I guess I'll go over that really quick. Brix accumulation was kind of low. Quality was decent, but it was a cooler year. It was kind of a more of a classic year, in my opinion. But overall, it made some really kind of elegant, nuanced, nice wines. And like I said about the Cab Franc is one of my favorites. The whites were nice.
Your
A little
screen
high.
went back to Simbali.
I did. I was just looking at the Brix numbers to remind myself how low they were. Anyway, but back to the Cab.
comparative
So
to 22, okay.
I just wanted to kind of remember the 2023 harvest. Anyway, that was the 2023 harvest. More of a classic, cooler vintage in the Finger Lakes. So back to 2022 vintage for the Cabernet Sauvignon Reserve. This is a really special wine. We do not, or have not been, and probably will not be making a Cabernet Sauvignon every year. I think it all started with the 2020 Cab Sauv. The bar was set pretty high, and then this 2022 set the bar a little higher. So we release the Cabernet Sauvignon Reserve pretty much only when we get a really nice vintage for it, which the 2022 was. I couldn't really ask for a better Cab Sauv from the Finger Lakes. I mean, man, it's got tannin, it has acidity, it has some body. The alcohol is almost 13%, which for a Finger Lakes wine does not happen very often.
Not without chaptalizing.
Not without chaptalizing. And I would be shocked. I don't believe this is chaptalized. I would be surprised if it was. And sometimes fermentation anyway. So yeah, this was destemmed and then fermented in tank. So we do have two tank fermenters instead of open top bins. And we do something called pump overs on those, and that's when we take the juice from the bottom of the tank and pump it over the top of the tank. And depending on how often you do it, it can be either less extractive than punch downs or more extractive than punch downs. I lean towards the more extractive than punch downs. So we usually do it, start out 3 times a day, and then taper that off as the fermentation continues. And it's the same concept as punch downs. It's just to keep the cap wet and macerating in the juice to get extraction and help with fermentation. And then, so with the Cab Sauv Reserve, we usually age these for a longer duration. This time it was 17 months in neutral French and Hungarian oak. And again, that's usually just, it's a stylistic choice. And as well, we only make these in vintages that really call for it. And the 2022, well, it really called for it. It had a lot of tannin and it just needed a little more time in barrel. And so we left it for a little longer.
And Wes, why, let's let everyone know why with our barrel aging, as far as why we don't, comparatively to some places, we don't age wines for 3, 4, 5, 6 years in barrel.
Yeah, we do. So in the Finger Lakes, we're not Napa, we're not Bordeaux. And places like that age it for a long time. A lot of that is a stylistic choice. But also those wines have so much alcohol, so much tannin that they really need to they need to age and micro-oxidize in barrels to soften out. And in the Finger Lakes, you can really abuse oak aging, and it can really take away from kind of the wine's character or the vintage or any sort of thing like that. So we try not to do too much too long in barrels. And again, those barrels are relatively neutral. I think our average barrel age, I'd have to update it from the newer used barrels we got. I think it's like 8 years, which is pretty neutral. But barrels leak or break, and so we got to get new used ones. But even new used ones are still only 2 or 3 years old. So anyway, that's why most of our wines aren't aged for 17 months. They're only aged for 9 to 10 or even less, depending on the wine. It really comes down to what that wine is tasting like and what kind of we feel or I feel that it, if it needs to be taken out or not. I really don't like to have a lot of oak on the wine. I think this has just enough. I do have to kind of remember and remind myself that people do expect a certain amount of oak on Cab Sauv, and I think the amount of oak that's on this Cab Sauv is perfect. So yeah, that's kind of why some wines are aged longer or less than others. Any questions on the Cab Sauv? Or other questions about anything? No? Nothing?
We're busy drinking it.
I guess so.
Oh, I hope so.
it was
I hope
great
some
to-
of you are drinking this right now.
It was definitely, it tastes like a Cab Sauv, which is a great thing.
Yes, it is. It is.
It's like the most tannic wine Atwater. I think among the most tannic we've ever had. Like, it is so much. The tannin quality content is just. I'm not used to that for this one. I'm used to more of the sort of the Simvoli sort of tannins. This is a lot more than we would normally get. I feel like 22 was, you say like a wet year, that's sort of an anomaly. I mean, 22 was such a weird drought year. It's almost an anomaly in itself. Like this is a great vintage, but this is this kind of tannin extraction, everything else is not a normal for finger, for us
No,
on
no.
Finger Lakes.
Not at all. We will probably unfortunately never see won't see a 2022 anytime soon, unfortunately.
It's
So-
a much darker body than, say, the Savali in the glass right beside it.
Yes, definitely. The color extraction and just those vintages were night and day differences. Okay.
So you guys snowed in up there?
Oh no, not a
They keep
speckle.
reporting lake effect snows in western New York State down here.
I think they got it
I'm-
north. They got it. No, I heard people talking about northern, going up north towards Rochester, Syracuse. Were getting it.
Mm.
We were just cold as hell. It was windy. It was
Yeah.
super windy today.
It's 26 here, so we're
Yeah.
not much warmer.
Yeah, it was really not Finger Lake up here at Atwater. It's always windy. It seems like it's always windy, and it was really windy with that temperature, which was pretty awful.
Hey,
I had
Wes,
to unload a truck before I did this, and I was on the forklift, and I thought I was going to die out there.
Yes, Steve.
on that Cab Sauv, what would you recommend as kind of a ideal drinking window for it?
I was gonna say this could probably. I think a misconception about Finger Lakes wines or just wine in general is they can age for quite a long time if they're stored properly. Even whites, we have 20-year-old white wines in the Atwater basement are still drinkable. They're probably past their prime, or past their peak. But for this wine, gosh, I kind of want to throw out some crazy long numbers, like 5 to 7 years is usually what I tell people for any of our wines. They'll absolutely last that long. I think this could do 7 to 10. I think a peak, a peak year to drink this is probably in 3 to 5 years from now. Although it's wonderful now. So I think if you have this sooner, you can just decant it for 30 minutes, or whilst you're drinking it. But I think this will last for you could open this in 10 years and it'll be good.
Okay, great.
It's going to lose that, it's going to lose that tannin or some of that tannin, and some of the fruit, but, yeah, 5 to 7, maybe even 10.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate it.
Of course. Okay. Anybody else? No?
There's a little bit of a question there. What about the
Oh,
24
LeBron.
harvest? Yeah.
Oh boy. I mentioned the Chardonnay. I am very excited for the Chardonnay. Although it's not even blended yet. It's actually not even done fermenting yet. But I believe it's going to be pretty good. As well as the Syrah. I don't always say that because I have very high standards for the Syrah, but I think the Syrah will be pretty good. It's tasting pretty nice now, which usually it's not like that. So I'm looking forward to the Syrah. I'm looking forward to the Chardonnay.
I'm super excited about both.
Me too. Those two are kind of two wines that I think I put the most, or I feel like I think you need to put the most effort into in the Finger Lakes. You can always make a good Riesling. Your Cab Franc's always going to be good, even at a tough vintage. I feel like Chardonnay and of course the Syrah, because what a crazy thing to be growing in the Finger Lakes, really require a lot of focus and a lot of thought. So we'll see kind of, in the coming years what I need to do to make those wines kind of the best they can be.
Syrah seems to be relatively new to the Finger Lakes, and by that I mean I've only seen wineries with it in the last 5 to 10 years.
Yes, it's very tough to grow, and you have to have the right site for it. And it's mostly the people that grow it are kind of within the 10-mile, 5-mile span of where Atwater is. I hate calling it this, but the banana belt. It's an awful name for it. But there
Wow.
is a really we're basically kind of at like the deepest part of Seneca Lake, and it allows us to plant some varieties that other sites up north or even south can't really run the risk of having a lot of overwinter damage. The
And
fun
I
thing
assume
about
there's a pretty good difference between your eastern side and western side because of the slope. Getting morning sun versus afternoon sun versus,
that is a hot topic, Paul.
is it?
Oh yes. People on the west side say the west side's better. People on the east side say the east side's better. Morning sun versus afternoon sun. There is, I think, one or two people who grow Syrah on the west side. And I don't think it's a west. I don't. Maybe ripening for them might be a little different. I've never had any of theirs, so I don't know if that's true. But the ones that I've consumed, which are not many. Again, there's maybe 3 or 4 that I can think of. They come from Hector. They come from the east side of Seneca, and the people who are making that Syrah are getting it from the one from Sawmill Creek, which is just north of us in Hector. So they grow it, we grow it. Next door, Chateau Lafayette grows it, but again, they're a stone throw away.
Amanda's not on. We can't ask what her husband thinks being
Oh, no,
over there on the
Amanda-
west side.
Amanda's here.
Oh, is she?
She is. I think she's been quiet. Maybe. She's
Oh, she's
there.
at the
She is.
bottom there.
She's at the bottom.
Um,
Yeah, Tracy might have some opinions. I don't know, but I don't want to get anybody.
Start a gang war.
Yeah.
East side versus west side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there she is. Hi, Amanda.
Well, we have the tasting room right now. We have a 2009 Syrah for the club. With the club weekend, we had the tasting room. We have a
You
few
still have
bottles.
some left?
We have that one case. Yeah. Well, it's been so slow here. We haven't even seen many club members, so that one case has been there.
Well,
And
get it.
Yummy.
that was
I bought my
actually
Max
that
at
was
2, that
Sawmill
means I can buy
Creek
more?
fruit. But I mean, look how long it's aged, and it's actually
Yeah.
tasting pretty well. Like Wes
It's
said, it may have
incredible.
lost some of the tannin, maybe a little bit of fruit, but boy, it's a 2009.
Yep.
Surprising how well the reds age. I'm usually used to the whites aging, that long, but
Mhm.
the reds, they can start, that 8 years. That's you're getting to the top end, but I was surprised when we opened those, how great they were.
That was our anniversary wine. It was yummy.
Aw.
It was great.
Oh, good, you guys have.
That was our 20-year anniversary wine.
That-
Wow.
That's right. You guys were in and got some of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun to bring that out. We've been bringing out a bunch of those library wines for the club weekends, and it's been fun tasting those. We've tasted those throughout some of the years here. I think I mentioned before when I first started here, no one really paid much attention to. There was all this wine in the cellar, and I started going through it because I was pretty interested, and we started taking some notes as we went through them because nobody had tasted them in many years. And it's been interesting for me since I've been here since 14, tasting even those. I mean, it's been 10 years since I've been here, so going back and still tasting some of those that are still we're still on the shelves. We've been going through them for the weekends because there's only a case or 2 of them. How long can we stay on them? They are going to start aging out. So it's been fun to bring them into the tasting room, have people taste them. It's also fun for us, at lunchtime. Wes will go down there and go, "Hey, look I brought this
Yes, it
out,"
will.
or I end up coming into the house for lunch, and they got something open they found in the basement. So we do taste through these things, and then we often go, "Okay, it's probably this one tastes really good. Let's bring it out." So those things are down there. As we've been keeping, we still add to that. I try to, if we get a good amount of stuff, where I'll save maybe 10 or 20 cases. But back in the day, we saved maybe a case or 2. So there wasn't a lot. There's a lot down there, but it's not a lot of any single vintage. So when we bring them out for these club weekends, that's pretty much going to be the end of them. You guys having the last of them. So all that discussion, as Wes is talking about aging, and as we talk about vintages, it is fun to see how these things end up aging and how they're tasting still. And it is weird. Some of the, sometimes a cork goes bad, old
Sure.
cork can be a problem if it's not, I can't vouch for how it was treated before I got here, whether it was in the
Mhm.
tasting room forever and they brought it down. Who knows? But it is fun to, knowing the history of those wines and then tasting them. And like I said, not everything was initially grown here. A lot of the reds were early on were originally grown at Sawmill. We didn't have a lot of reds here at Atwater until 2010. We started playing Syrah and things like that. So some of those reds Blau and all those things were planted after that. So early on, Atwater's a lot of reds came from Sawmill Creek, just up the road. So seeing the difference of what we're doing now compared to what was done then or what grapes we had is quite unique. And the direction we've gone from those times too is interesting to taste now too, as Wes has taken the program to a different level of what we're doing. It's changing that too and how things are going to age. So it's going to be
For sure.
fun as we go for the next couple of years to taste how these wines age compared to the ones I'm used to from Atwater. It's these changes take time, and even Wes has been here quite a few years now too. Is I think even as he's learned. We learned when we were here as Wes has taken over. Every year you learn something new. Every year you sort of make some new decisions that based on your previous experience. And that question that LeBron had about it's fun to watch Wes going through that. I have been here for a while. But Wes making these decisions based on his new experience coming into it too. And what I love about Wes's take on things is that he sort of took stuff that we were already talking about, but he's going in a direction that we probably didn't really dream about back in the day. When I started here, it was quite different. Is taking it to that level where we're really completely focused on the vintage and not going, well, it should be, we should do this. We should add some sugar just till we have the same alcohols previous. That's sort of gone out the window and sort of really focusing, Wes is focusing really on those vintages and tasting these wines and how they evolve is really, really fun and interesting. And, you don't have to have certain, and, it doesn't have to be dark color all the time. It doesn't have to be high alcohol all the time for certain things. Tasting that fruit and that vintage is really fun. And on the cooler year versus dry year, you still taste those same fruit flavors, just enhanced or slightly different or slightly more intense than the previous vintage, or maybe it's more fruity from the cooler vintage and then more rich and tannic from the 22 vintage. It's still Atwater grapes and still Atwater wine. Yeah. It's just highlighting different things from one vintage to the other. That's it. Whether you're highlighting a little bit more acid, a little more fruit, whether you're highlighting a little more less acid, a little more extraction. That's been sort of fun to see that. And the wild ferments. I mean, I don't know if anybody's noticed. Over the guys that have been here for a long time is tasting those. Wes going to the completely taking it to the Pied de Cuve. Tasting how the texture and everything has evolved here is really fun too, especially for those that have been here for a long time with us. Seeing that sort of evolution. We started doing some of that, Vinny and I, back in the day, but it was sort of like, very sort of tiptoe around it. And it's fun to finally get to that point all the way. We probably would have never thought that was going to happen, 10 years ago. And seeing where we're at and tasting what that has changed to the fruit is awesome. So it's great. If I was still making the wine, would I have gone that quickly? I don't know.
Yeah.
My old ways, I was very slow about everything, but
it took me a couple of
Wes,
vintages.
Yeah, I mean, Wes, did it in a way that the wine tastes. We didn't just throw it to the wind. He worked with it to get it to this point.
Yeah.
And it's taken him the years to get it to where we're at, and here we are, and it's fun to taste these guys. So that's really for me is fun to watch, and sort of the evolution of the wines here. This vintage for me, I've been so busy doing it. Wes and Sam and all the guys back in the vintage did a great job. I was busy in the tasting room, so if you guys saw me mostly in there, I really didn't have to worry about the vintage because those guys did all the work. So I just came in. I finally went and tasted the other day with Wes and Sam, because I'm like, I show me what the show me things, because I have not been down in the tank room, and the Chardonnay, we tasted through those, and it's going to be a great vintage. Just from tasting it yesterday with Sam and Wes, boy, I really like that Syrah, that Cab Franc. The Cab Franc was really good too, and the Pinot was surprisingly tannic.
Pinot. Yeah.
Nice and rich. So it's for me, just sort of going through those yesterday. Wes and Sam have been tasting these for a while. I haven't, and so I was pleasantly surprised to see how things are evolving down there with the 24 vintage. And for me to get a little taste of things, really exciting. So I hope you guys are gonna, I think, really enjoy the stuff coming out. Of course, it'll be a bit. Now that we got some wines they actually have on, actually have enough of. It's not like we're going to be having for 1 week and then, one club shipment and it's gone. I'm hoping we have them so you guys can enjoy them for a little longer than, like this Cab Sav. I think there's 6 or 7 cases left. From we just released it, so yeah, it all went pretty fast.
That's why it was marked as the club exclusive, I assume.
Well, yeah,
Yes.
we got a good amount of members, so any club shipment, the basic thing is about 120 cases. If we put Cab Sav or whatever wine we put in there, it's about 120 cases. So if we only have 138 cases, that's pretty much all of it. And a little bit left to sell. I mean, that's part of what's great about, for us, for the club too, is we can have those. It's fun to have those fun things for you guys, and then they're gone. You guys pretty much have those as part of being in the club.
Save a Cab Franc 23 for me so I can add to my
Oh, there's plenty of it.
We did make a lot of
plenty
it.
that,
Yeah, Wes did a good job. We had a good vintage of it. The 23, I think we made, it was a lot.
I think it was like 700 cases or something.
Yeah, it was 599 or
maybe it wasn't 7.
Yeah, I think it was 599. This year might be close to 7.
No, this year it'll be 700.
Yeah. So we got a good amount of Cab Franc, which should be the normal here. That's one of our main stand-in wines, our sort of flagship wines between Riesling and Cab Franc. We should have that much. And if you haven't, heard as you've come in there, we just planted, just about 6 acres of it. Again, on the new part of our farm that we renovated. So in a couple of years,
I was gonna say, but that's 4 or 5 years out then, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll start getting, we did half of it and then another half. So yeah, 4 years, we're going to have a lot of Cab Franc coming in, which is going to be exclusively rosé for us. All of our rosé and all of our Cab Franc will be from those. That's more than we've ever had. Currently, we have 3.75 acres of Cab Franc total, and those are older vines that are sort of, their production's going down. In a couple of years, we're going to have renovated vines, renovated soils that are, almost, not quite double, but close to that. So we're going to have a lot of Cab Franc, a lot of young, vibrant Cab Franc. So it's going to be exciting.
Sounds like that should be the next vertical tasting.
Yeah, Cab Franc. Yeah, we're talking about doing some of that too in the spring here, as we recover a little bit from the summer. Coming in spring is doing some club verticals and doing some little fun things.
Nice.
Those are so fun. Personal opinion.
Yes, yeah,
I agree.
We're gonna try to do some of those. For those who can't come by, we might do another vertical for it. Send out some wines. Wes didn't talk about it yet, but talk 24 vintage, the pet nats. We have couple new pet nats that are really fun.
How can I forget?
Yeah.
They're already
but
bottled, and so I've just forgotten about them.
I know
It's
they're
like,
already
it's
bottled.
done.
The labels
It's like,
just
ah,
came in today.
oh,
So
great.
the labels came in today, and we'll probably be doing. We got to figure out a date, but we'll probably be doing like a, the secret PetNat release party. So keep an eye out for that. If you guys are around, we're gonna have some old PetNats and some new stuff, all the new ones, and while they might not all be released, we'll have the sneak peek of all of them and be able to have those too. So look forward to that. Keep an eye out for the emails for the couple events and the different events in the spring here too. Try to do, this is the quiet time so we can do some more of those things we can't do in the summer that are especially for club. So anybody that's around, if you ever got any questions about wines you might be interested in that might be on a list, guys, email Amanda. Let her know if there's something you're looking for that might not be on the website. We either have it or we don't. Things like the 22 Cab Franc, I put some to save if anybody, really needs some of that before it's completely back in storage. Let Amanda know. Or anything, like if you always have questions, you can always contact her and she'll find out, see what we got, if there's something special you guys are interested in. Cuvée, the new Cuvée, or well, the second disgorging of that
Re-release.
Cuvée is amazing. Yeah, and Amanda knows where everything's hidden. So if you guys haven't tried that yet, it is amazing. And like Wes alluded to, you're not going to see it for maybe another year or so, but we're making more sparkling wine than we ever have. Back in the day, we make maybe a couple 100 cases every other year. Now we're making at least that every year. So you're going to see a lot more method sparkling than we ever had, and some really fun stuff, including that rosé sparkling.
Not your force carbonated like the bubble.
No, we'll still have
No.
our bubble Riesling, but
Yeah.
the actual traditional method. And reason why we're making every year and more of it is so we can age it longer. I think Wes would like to have it at least 4 years if we can.
Yeah, 3. I'll take 3.
3 or 4
But
before
would
we
be
even
nice.
release it. It's just nice to have that age, and it does enhance those wines. So keep an eye out for more sparkling. This stuff's going pretty quick. From the 18, we just tasted the 21 at our traditional lunch tasting of wines. And that's tasting really awesome. I don't even think we have to, Wes doesn't even, hoping not to even add any back-ending any sugar for the dosage. So it's going to be, those are going to be really good. So I'm excited about the sparklings because I think Finger Lakes is ideally suited for sparkling. It's sort of taken a backseat for a while. A couple of us here in this side of the lake, as well as some of the other side, do it. But I'd like to see a little bit more of a resurgence of it, because a good, a traditional sparkling is amazing, especially when you give it that 3 to 4 years to be able to do that, which we're hoping to have, be able to release something that old every year once we have the time behind that, and that requires us to make more of it. So there's that too. Not to take it away from Wes, any other questions just on Atwater in general, or things you guys might be interested in from us?
One question I'd like to ask, during harvest, do you ever use volunteers, or do you find that they are in the way?
Yes, I hire at least 2 interns. Well, and I shouldn't say at least. I hire ideally 2 interns every year. So it'd be me, my assistant Sam, and then 2 interns. But no, we always will take help, especially on days like when we're sorting fruit. It's a miserable time when we're hand sorting Pinot Noir, Syrah. But no, we're usually open to help wherever we can get it, because there's always fires to be put out during harvest.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I think what people don't realize with harvest is you know, it's not like, you know, an hour of picking a couple fruits. You know, for folks that actually want to come out and do something like that, it's like all day, heavy work. Harvest, those guys are out there, you know, slinging grapes, working hard, getting wet, getting sticky. It's not for the faint of heart. Harvest is quick, and for those that want to get their hands dirty, expect that you will be, and you'll be exhausted.
Okay.
Amy, you had something to say? I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Well, I did want to say thank you to the tasting room staff who came today. Jen, Jamie, and Greg. Wine Club members, you may remember seeing them in the tasting room. So they are here with us tonight too.
Greg's in space.
Hi.
Yeah.
Greg is in space. He probably gets the award for furthest travel to calling in.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah.
And
All right,
Amy did choose the door prize
Oh yeah,
for
door
the
prize.
evening. So she did an auto-generated system. And congratulations, Teresa, for the winner tonight. So we will give you a choice of either a t-shirt or a beanie, and I will contact you tomorrow. I'll send you pictures and you can choose which one you'd like and we'll get it shipped out to you.
All right. I didn't realize that. Wow, fancy.
How could you forget?
Well, you know, I'm used to the old days. We didn't have that fancy kind of stuff here at these virtual tastings. It just, I mean, the fanciest thing was me. You know, now we got giveaways and prizes.
No, it's that
Wow.
it's that Atwater bottle lamp behind you.
Oh yeah, did you see
Oh
that?
yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
I wonder who made that. Thank you, Gosnells. It is fancy. Yeah, those are old school, those big giant bottles. There's actually, I don't know if it's a Cab Merlot. There's actually one more of those giant things of that one, I think. And then
Oh,
we actually
really?
did put some away. I can't remember, what was it, 16?
Amanda, we got to
We don't have any more of that Cab Merlot.
No, okay.
We
think
do
we did.
have all the 2016s and
Yeah.
all the 2022s. I think
Oh.
we've got 2 of each, so probably 2 Cab Francs, 2 Cab Sauvs, 2 Syrahs from 16, and then probably an equivalent amount from 2022.
Yeah, so those are like, we'll pull those out for some special occasion eventually, or probably some club event. So it's always fun to see those giant. We don't have any
Once they hit
labels
the
for 'em.
10-year mark.
We'll have to make some special labels, or have
Somebody paints them.
Amanda's husband
yeah.
paint some bottles for us. He's done that before too.
They're so
Uh,
beautiful too.
Yeah, he has hand painted some of the giant bottles for us before, and
Oh, that's cool.
we'll have to have that as some weird special prize, club prize one of these years. But they're still out down there aging, and it's fun to see that. Yeah, the last of these very few bottles turned into a sweet lamp on my desk here, amongst all the other wacky things in my office. Anything else? I know it's already 8 o'clock, almost 8 o'clock.
Before we leave, I just want to let everyone know that we do have the dates for the February Wine Club pickup weekend established. So if you want to put that on your calendar, it will be February 23rd and 24th, right, Amanda? So shortly we will have the registration link live, but if you want to plan ahead, put those dates in your calendar, and we do look forward to seeing you in person.
I actually do have those dates open on Talk for the reservation system. So
So you-
anybody who wants to get their time slot in early can.
I assume you mean the 22nd and 3rd, Saturday, Sunday?
Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I mean. Thank you. And if you're on Facebook and you haven't joined our special wine club group, please do.
Oh yeah,
You
there's a
can-
special group.
Yeah, and if you don't know how to do that, you can email Amanda or me and we can talk you through it.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you guys for continuing to do these things, because it gets hard for us to get up there all the time from Atlanta. So this is kind of stay connected with you guys. We love your wine, and we certainly appreciate this.
Oh, thank
Yeah,
you for
these-
coming. We appreciate when you guys come to these.
Yeah, they're always fun. We started doing this for, once again, COVID reasons, and then we kept doing them for the club stuff. Harvest time's always hard to do them, so it's nice to get back to doing them. It's nice to see a good turnout too. This is a pretty decent turnout for us. I know not everybody back now wants to be on Zoom anymore, but it seemed to be maybe a little bit more of an uptake, people coming back to it. I think everyone was a little burned out after COVID. But for those of you, like Steve, that can't be here, I think it's a good way to connect with everyone and see everybody here, and actually get a lot of information. You don't always get all that in the tasting room. Wes is not always in the tasting room, so it's nice to be able to have him go through this stuff. Like, even for me, I don't, like I said, the other day was the first thing I really had connected since Harvest with Wes, and intimately went through the wine. So for you guys, it's nice to be able to, do that with you too, and have him here to go through some of those really intimate things with the wine, whether it's, those different procedures or these different changes we've been doing in the cellar. So you guys understand it and can start, see it in the wines too. So thank you guys for coming. I always appreciate it. It's great to see people enjoy our stuff enough that you're spending your evening here with it. Hopefully you got, the rest of the bottle to finish, or if you opened all three, well, I hope you have somebody to share it with. Yeah, Regina, where's Tom? Like, is he?
Okay, so you'll laugh. I'm home in New Jersey. Tom is up there at the lake house. I told him before, I said, you've got to get on at 6:30. He was still working on his outdoor project with lights on.
Well, he's
He
probably
knew-
got a bottle open at least, I'm sure.
He probably does.
Yeah, well,
George,
thank you.
Darlene and I opened all three, but we're gonna pump two of them and finish the Cab Sauv.
Okay, good. Yeah, the Cab Sauv, like opening that and letting it, even a day to aerate a little bit wouldn't be a bad idea for those or young guys too. So that's good. Yeah, don't drink all three bottles tonight.
Oh, no,
That's good.
we can't.
No, we can't do that.
I'm too old for that too. I have a couple glasses and I'm like, okay,
I'm
it's time to
not.
pass out. Go home,
The
sleep.
Christmas party tomorrow and a Christmas party Saturday, so I can't go too crazy tonight.
Yeah, plenty of you'll need plenty of that energy to get you through, and then drink to get you through those, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Wes, for going through that with everybody. I've missed out on a lot of these. I've been letting I've been busy, and Wes has been doing them since I've been busy in the tasting room all these Thursday nights, making drinks. If you guys haven't been on Thursday nights in the summer, I've been slinging cocktails pretty heavy. So if you haven't been on a Thursday night in the summer, try to get to them this year. I'll have my cocktail list has grown a little bit absurd. Try some cocktails and try some wine on Thursday nights in the tasting room. That's where I have been on most of these Thursday nights in the summer when Wes was doing these virtuals. He was in his office doing those. I was in the tasting room till about 10 o'clock. This has been some long Thursday nights. So,
And I do
please.
recommend your espresso martini.
Oh, yes, thank you.
That was really good.
I just made a whole new bunch of espresso liqueur for those.
They were good.
Yeah, so I've gotten my recipes down for all my stuff. I don't get to make wine in the tasting room or in the cellar anymore, so I found something new to make cocktails. That's keeping me my creative stuff going. I let Wes do the big work. I'm doing the little fancy work on a Thursday night. So thank you guys. It's great to see everybody for this. Thank you, Wes, for going through all that and sharing Harvest with us. If you guys ever have any questions, email Amanda or myself. And yeah, have a great evening. If you guys have anything else, you can stay in yeah, like very specific questions, you can stay and go over those. If not, we will see you guys in the tasting room hopefully soon.
Yeah.
All right.
Sometime.
Happy holidays.
Yeah, the holiday,
Merry
happy
Christmas.
holidays
Happy
too. That's coming
holidays.
up.
Forgot about that.
Happy holidays.
Cheers.
August.
Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Hey, Amy,
Cheers. Cheers.
I sent you an email with some times, unless you want to just stay on now and do it.
We can stay on now.
We have to stop the recording though.
Yes,
Oh,
Oh, these secret talks, secret discussions.
they're
All right.
secret.
recording is ending as of right now.